Hey, if you're an IoT vendor and are struggling to get your IoT solution launched, then you're going to want to tune in to the current episode of IoT Playbook podcast with my special guest, Tom Snyder. Now, Tom is the director of NCRIoT, which has a free 12-week IoT Accelerator Program that has helped his members raise over $300 million in startup funding. Now, in this episode, you'll discover how the NCRIoT Accelerator Program was created and what services it offers, how you can apply to become a member of the NCRIoT Accelerator Program, and how NCRIoT members got prepared to deliver the perfect investor pitch for PitchFest, the Shark Tank for IoT solution providers that have invested over $300 million in NCRIoT members. So, if you've ever been wondering how to get your IoT solution launched into the market or how to raise investment capital for your IoT solution, then this episode was designed especially for you. So just head on over to podcast.iotplaybook.com, where we show you the actual playbooks IoT managed service providers are using to make 7 figures or more of recurring revenue right now. Well, hey, my name is Mark Smith, and I'm with IoT Playbook, and I'm here with Tom Snyder from NCRIoT and the Wireless Research Center, both here. And so welcome, Tom.
Cool. Thank you for having me, Mark. I'm glad to be here.
So tell me about the Wireless Research Center, how it got started, how you got involved with that.
Yeah, absolutely. The Wireless Center was stood up in 2010 in a town called Wake Forest, North Carolina, which is about a half an hour north of Research Triangle in Raleigh, North Carolina, if people are familiar with RTP. It was founded actually just after, you may recall, there was a technology recession that happened around 2008, 2009 time frame. And there were a lot of big companies that everybody would recognize their names from RTP that were greatly downsizing. Companies like Sony Ericsson and HTC and Nortel and others. And a visionary named Jerry Hayes recognized that collection of companies had some of the most advanced equipment and testing labs in the world for wireless devices. And he leveraged an organization called the Golden Leaf Foundation, which was the foundation that managed the tobacco settlement money. So we're getting pretty far from tech here, but the tobacco industry, a big lawsuit had been levied against that industry for some of the health issues that had come out of big tobacco. And that money was meant to be redeployed for economic development and to replace tobacco jobs with new jobs. And so the Golden Leaf Foundation gave a grant to secure equipment out of these companies that were downsizing and relocate that equipment up to Wake Forest, North Carolina, and build a world-class test facility. It was, at the time it opened, and still today, one of the most capable test facilities in the world. And you can think of the testing similar to what a TÜV-SÜD or a UL or other kinds of companies would do. Regulatory testing, performance testing, also engineering services and things around this wireless space. And the idea was that there was a strong, perhaps the strongest concentration of wireless talent in the United States was in Research Triangle at the time. And there was concern that those folks, as these companies were shutting down, might leave and there'd be a massive brain drain. So by setting up this facility and setting it up as a nonprofit organization, we were able to establish a resource for people to take their severance package and instead of using that money to move to somewhere else for a job, instead to create their own job and to place that headquarters up in Wake Forest in a commercialization center that was set up and leverage all of this equipment without having the burden of a large capital expenditure to start a technology company.
So who's the ideal people who are utilizing the Wireless Research Center?
We work with companies of all sizes and from around the world. So the Wireless Center side of our business, and then I'm going to talk about IoT, which is the part of our business that I run. The Wireless Center is a fee-for-service kind of an organization. if you're looking to start a brand new company, we have office space available that's adjacent to large anechoic chambers and all kinds of electrical test bench equipment, whatever you might need to put that project together. And there are expert engineers, a lot of PhD antenna engineers and RF engineers and so on that are up there and available. But that part of the business operates as fee for service, and as a result, we work with some of the biggest technology companies in the world that are launching products to market, and they come from around the world and send their devices to us to get them tested on the front end to see how they're performing, to make sure that they operate in the ways that the designers intend for them to. And then on the back end, we can do the kinds of tests that are required to put something, from a regulatory point of view, to put something onto the market.
Okay. And so now tell me about the birth of NCRIoT. And of course, the name, I think, is North Carolina, Raleigh, IoT, or what's the name?
Yeah. So it's had some evolution, actually.
Okay.
Riot started in 2014, and initially it was a meetup group. So initially it was the Raleigh Internet of Things. We just called it Riot. It was an acronym, and it was a meetup to try and help bring people together to understand what is Internet of Things. What does it mean? It was a hot buzzword, but not everybody understood what it meant. And it was really an ask to the community: if you know something about IoT and how it's changing business, please come out and tell us about it. We'd like to learn. What we found was the very first meetup, which was not heavily marketed or promoted, about 80 people came out, and they were all from the biggest technology companies in RTP. The folks that you would think would be the experts came out, hoping that those of us that held the meetup would tell them what the answer was. And so we saw there was a clear market need, and quickly developed out Riot to be a networking and convening and educational resource for the area. What we were realizing was that the Wireless Center was providing an incredible service, and there was a lot of success coming out of that. But to be successful in Internet of Things requires a whole lot more than just wireless. Mm-hmm. It requires a firm understanding of sensing and data collection, firm understanding of networking and connectivity, of data analytics, of what does that human interface look like when the machines are just talking to each other. All of these things need to come together with additional technical resources that were outside of the existing scope of the Wireless Center, and then a lot of business resources that were required as well.
Okay. And so tell me about somebody. It might help to have like a case study of somebody going through NCRIoT. Where would they start? And then what did the program do for them? How did that evolve? And I believe it's a 12-week program. And what's required of them? Do they have to move to in North Carolina and Raleigh area? Tell me about that. And what's the sort of promised outcome, assuming they do the work?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me describe two things that Riot does to give that answer. So first of all, the Wireless Center I described as kind of a fee for service, fairly straightforward. I need a particular wireless test run. Here's what it takes to do that. And that's somewhat transactional. On the Riot side of the business, we're much more relationship focused. How can we help every organization that we work with? And we work significantly with the entrepreneurial community, but we also work with very large established companies. And we have two main areas of focus. One is that we run a startup accelerator, and I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, the startup accelerator.
In your question. We also, though, are a convener. So we run conferences and workshops and other kinds of events all across the United States now that promote marketing and business development. So let me start with the accelerator, and then I'll talk about how that ties back to the event series. We had been working for our first several years. I mentioned Riot started in 2014. Mm-hmm. For the first 2 or 3 years, we worked with companies one-on-one. Early stage companies would come to us and they had an idea, or they had done a little bit of market validation, but they were trying to really figure out, how do I move forward? And we would work with them, and most significantly, we would help introduce them to partners that could move them forward, whether those were semiconductor companies that had the right sensors that they needed, or wireless companies that could help them with connectivity, or machine learning and artificial intelligence companies that could help them with their analytics. We worked a lot with system integrators and other folks that can help kind of bring all these parts of the technology stack together. And so we became an expert connector, if you will. We would sit down with a company at any stage, but usually they were pre-revenue, pre-market, and we'd help them to build the right team to move forward. As we did this, though, we started finding really large established companies also needed that same kind of help. There is nobody in industry today, even the biggest of the big companies, that does everything in the IoT technology stack. You have to collaborate in some way. And so we became, I think, because we were a nonprofit and we weren't taking any ownership stake in businesses that we work with, we became a trusted resource to help do connections. In our first, I guess, about 3 years, we realized that working one-on-one with companies, we had helped companies to raise about $250 million and create 350 or 400 jobs here in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't own any of the intellectual property of those companies. We don't own equity. We were to those startups a free resource helping them to move forward. The way that's funded is that we have about 80 corporate partners that pay an annual membership fee, or some call it a sponsorship fee, to engage and work with these companies and hope that these early stage companies will grow up on their technology platforms, and they become new customers, or they might solve a problem that a company recognizes as a market opportunity that they don't have the bandwidth to address themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe they eventually become an investment or an acquisition of that company. So after seeing some of those early numbers, we formalized and started running a 12-week startup curriculum in the same kind of vein like you'd see from a Y Combinator or a Techstars or some of these other technology companies, but with a significant focus on IoT. There's a huge underserved market today in companies that are involved in both hardware and software. Most of Silicon Valley, for example, is interested just in software companies from the VC and investment community.
Mm-hmm.
That's not universally true, but the vast majority. And we knew hardware. Doesn't mean that software is not important. That's where most of the value still is created. But as we move from what I think of as the IT economy into the IoT economy, that's about real-time data. And data is created at the edge. So those companies that are able to create data and then also create the intelligence out of the data, those are going to be the future, big companies that all the others will emulate. And it's why companies that we think of as traditional software companies like Microsoft or Amazon or Google are investing so much in hardware right now.
So tell me about a company that went through the accelerator program, kind of where they were at the beginning, like why they joined and where they've gone or what they've got out of it.
Sure. So I'll give an example real recently. So we worked with a company in our most recent cohort called Greenstream Technologies. Greenstream was based originally out of Norfolk, Virginia, and they had developed an environmental sensor that measured rise in water. And these sensors would be placed over creeks and rivers. They were placed out at the coast. They were placed in different places. Sometimes they're even placed where water should not be, but regularly came, like intersections in low-lying areas and towns. And they had developed a really nice piece of hardware, but we're trying to figure, what was the right way to take that business and to really grow and scale it. They came into the program. We worked with them both on their engineering side. They were exploring new technologies like LoRa communications, for example, versus cellular, trying to understand are there better ways to achieve connectivity in areas where cellular networks were not as strong, or ways to achieve longer battery life, because many of their sensors will be deployed out in distant areas. It'd be difficult to go and replace a battery. And they developed in our program a completely autonomous device. It's a solar powered device with long range connectivity that can provide environmental monitoring services predominantly back to governments. So the other piece that they learned through our program was really how to sell this product in. They're approaching municipalities kind of one by one, and having some success and getting some deployments. And what they're able to do is, over time, as they collect this information, they can give real time information to first responder communities, for example, on when is an intersection going to flood, when you need to rescue people during a weather event or something before the event happens, because they can see some early indicators that are coming. That's an example application of what this company can do. But through our program now, they've grown. They've signed a number of municipal contracts, and they recently signed a statewide contract with the state of North Carolina.
So going through your program, you helped them get the product figured out, and then 2, you helped them get a customer or 2,
Yep.
and 3, I don't know if you helped them also get funding. Obviously, they got funding from customers, which is the best kind of funding to get.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know if they got investment through that as well. I'm not sure. Did they?
So this particular company has not. One of the things that makes us unique, aside from being a nonprofit accelerator, which is extremely rare, is that because we are not venture capital backed,
right,
we're not driven to make all the companies we work with investable. That's not a bad thing to be investable necessarily. Investment can help a company to scale really fast, and we're at about 350 million now in over 5 years that have been invested in companies that we've worked with through the Wireless Center and through Riot. However, if you can grow without the investment, that tends to be a much better
situation
for the owners. And so in this case, Greenstream so far has been able to be bootstrapped, and that's really exciting.
Which is amazing. So, because I know one of the aspects that you coach people to is to be able to do a pitch, and in fact, you've got I think it's called Pitch Fest or something like that, right? I almost look at it like, hey, that's like Shark Tank for IoT or something.
We have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. So how does that work? You get them ready and coach them on how to do pitch, and then who actually comes to see the pitch, and who do they get to pitch?
Yeah, each cycle, the 12 weeks breaks down really into the first 3 or 4 weeks of the program are very focused on customer discovery. Even we worked with a $19 billion corporation that was working on a new project recently, and we walked them through customer discovery of understanding what is it that they were trying to do with a new product offering that they were developing. And then the middle of the program is really about product development and business development. And then the tail end of the program focuses very much on how do you sell. So pitching to me is just a part of sales. Sometimes you're selling to investors, sometimes you're selling to a customer, sometimes you're selling to an audience of users that might not be your end customers, but if those users are excited enough, then the customers come on board. And we end each cycle with what we call pitch night. And that's a public facing event where we invite anyone in the community that wants to come out to hear these companies, and they pitch, and we line up judges. At our most recent event, we had 5 investor judges that come in, and we have this gaudy Riot Championship belt. It's like one of the big wrestling belts that we give out to the winners at the end of the evening. And then, of course, after the event, we'll set up one-on-one investor meetings between the startups and not just those judges, but others that attend. And they're a lot of fun. We pick somewhere fun to do them. We've done them in rock and roll clubs. We've done the most recent one we did at a children's museum. We try and have a high energy, fun environment for these companies to have their kind of coming out party to the public on what they've been working on through the program.
Well, this is really good. And, I've been, for us, for IoT Playbook, which is, launched from Channel Pro, we've been focused again on the IT channel. And we got into this because IoT is now, moving into all of these businesses. In fact, once we teach people how to do a scan that can identify these devices, the people that are actually scanning them are finding out, well, there's more IoT devices here than there are the traditional PC and server firewall type devices. And so we're saying, look, you can't tell your client that you've secured their network unless you've figured out how to secure the IoT, which is a whole new set of challenges. But on the good side is the money side. I had one particular guy went on stage and he was talking. He's in Salinas, California. His name is Luis Alvarez, and Luis has been in the ag business. Serving half his clients are ag, and some are niching down in a cannabis business. And one of the regulations around cannabis is that you monitor something from seed to sale. 300 cameras have to be on, point in the right direction, 24/7. If one goes down, you have to shut the whole operation down. So all of a sudden his clients needed, hey, can you manage cameras? Like, how am I going to do that? So he actually did use a particular device that I actually introduced him to, came from the consumer side. So on the consumer side, there's a company called Domotz, Domotz. Not sure you heard of them, but they their first client was Best Buy. And so when Best Buy when they install something in a home, they didn't want to do a truck roll if somebody says, my Netflix won't come up, right? So
Right.
they remotely go in and look at all the devices that may impact that they put in either through Best Buy or Magnolia, their home install deal. And so they put a little box in there called MagCare. It's really a Domotz unit. Anyway, they've registered 1.5 billion devices. So I thought, hey, these guys really know device recognition. I wonder how that would work in the IT space. So I introduced it to him. And anyway, he's now using it in the IT space to not only he created a monitoring alert service where he's generated now already $1 million in recurring revenue from monitoring an alert from his clients, but then now a video management service where he can charge $2,400 a month to manage all these cameras. Okay, and then the next level beyond that is turning on the AI so that you could recognize the individual staff and then the plants growing and things like that. So when tools are starting to emerge like that, our audience of channel integrators who look to figure out and put in a stack of things and then be able to manage it afterwards are starting to go, ooh, now I've starting to see how I can make money with this. So that's where we come in. So we're excited to see this kind of thing. But I meet and I had this diagram that I wanted to get your input on. That and what it is I'm noticing when I'm talking to a lot more IoT, I'll call them IoT vendors, and you can get into the subtlety of what all an IoT vendor is, but I find that they're in one of these 4 stages. Okay, so they're just getting off the ground, maybe they got some funding, and their goal in life is get their product right. All the things that you actually do that you just mentioned, your accelerator program, that's all the things they need. Like, who's my client? How do I get funding? How do I get my first customer? And their issue is, hey, I got people on board. I got no customers. I got a high burn rate. I got to get out of this mode eventually, right? And then the next one, what I call project mode. So they've got a few wins, proof of concepts, maybe a paying client, get some customer wins, and they got some project revenue, but I call them they're stuck a little bit in what I call project hell mode, because everything is a unique custom install, and so it's like they're starting from scratch every time in that project. So they're trying to get some momentum. And then the third level, which we're now starting to see, I call playbook level, where the IT channel, there's something, a repeatable process, like I mentioned with Lewis, where he can sell a service over and over again. He sold that IoT managed service now to 200 different clients. He sold the video management one now to 12 different clients. So now he can do the same repeatable process, train his team, and really almost guarantee results because he's done it over and over and over so many times. And finally, I call the last one platform. Obviously, AWS, Microsoft, Azure, right? These are, you hit a platform level when everybody's coming to you wanting to plug into your platform, right? And there's very few people at the top of that stack. I'm sure a lot of people would love to be a platform player, but it takes quite a bit of work to get to that level. Anyway, I don't know what you think about this.
I love the slide. I completely agree with you that this is This tends to be the business evolution. I think what we're seeing in IoT right now is that IoT is almost entirely down at that bottom tier in terms of developing towards eventual IoT platforms. Now, there are a lot of IT platforms, established connectivity networks, established cloud networks, like you mentioned, that drive IT and drive IoT. But over time, there's an awful lot of folks that want to be that IoT middleware. Say that, what is that dashboard that can connect to any device from any manufacturer and show everything on a single screen? We don't have that platform yet, but that's at the project level for a lot of companies that we work with. What I think that is interesting, and where Riot comes in, is that we are kind of a connectivity layer between these different levels in the pyramid that you show here. We're helping folks that are at that early stage to develop out those prototypes, but to connect all the way through to the folks that may have already developed a managed service that they can leverage rather than reinventing it themselves.
Yeah.
That can help them to choose what is the right platform for the particular needs that they have. And so we try and create these collaborations across the layers that you described. What is, I think, really interesting, though, is we spend a lot of time, most of our sponsor companies are at the top end of this pyramid. They're the big platform and managed service providers and so on. Working with them to realize they themselves have prototypes that they need to be running even as they evolve and grow their business. Because as you know, no business stays the same. If you look at cloud, for example, right now, a lot of the pricing models, the consumption models, the way that cloud was sold, 5 years ago, don't necessarily apply that well to IoT, and those business models need to change. We're starting to see a lot more like outcome-driven pricing versus just consumption-driven pricing. Those are things where even the big IT platform providers need to continually move some projects back down to that prototype level and evolve their services, and that's another area that we really like to help out where we can.
So good. So you've got the experience then to work with a larger company who wants to then essentially, entrepreneurial, launch a team, go out, create a product, let it get maturity, and then figure out how to. Of course, they have to figure out how to pull it back into the big organization. Otherwise, if they don't do that, they just have to go wait till something hits a certain maturity level and go buy it, right?
That's right. But what we can help them do is if they have an idea of what they need, we can help them to build it internally or help them to source a team to do it on the side. And then they monitor them, or they have some investment stake in that company, or use that as a test field outside of their corporate structure and corporate biases. And that can help move things forward much more quickly.
So, okay. So if I am I'm an IoT vendor, and I look at this and I say, man, I'm in a prototype stage. What resources can I get from Riot, and how would I go do that? You mentioned the Accelerator Program. How many times do you run that? Is there an application process? How does that work?
Yeah. So first of all, anyone can reach out to us. We're easy to find. We're NCRIoT.org. We still have the NC in our name. We're based in North Carolina, but we work with companies actually all over the world. I was just down in South America about a month and a half ago, working with some companies down there. Reach out to us, connect. Let's take a first meeting together, understand what your needs are. If we recommend that you apply into our accelerator, we run that twice a year in Raleigh, North Carolina, and starting next year, we'll also be running that once a year in Wilson, North Carolina. We're talking to some additional cities in the Southeast about opening additional Riot Labs and hopefully creating more opportunities. So stay tuned for that. Nothing to announce yet today, but we are growing and trying to create more opportunity. But twice a year, we have an application window. We actually just closed a window on June 30th for our next cycle, the accelerator. But any company can apply. And then we have a lot of expert reviewers that help look for, what are the best ideas out there, who are some of the more creative founders that we find. And we're interviewing, I think, next week about 15 companies for our next cohort. We'll take between 6 and 10 early stage companies. Now, if you are an established corporation wanting to run an internal innovation team, just reach out and connect to us. We have a different path in for those companies. The larger companies, there is a cost associated with our program, but for those early stage pre-revenue startups, we are a completely free service. So we encourage companies to apply. We don't take any equity in that company. We're just looking to create jobs. Our goal is economic development. That's how we maintain our nonprofit status. We've helped create over 500 jobs in the last 5 years, and we want to continue to do that because, as you know, IoT is a huge growth market.
Okay, great. So then, the way I look at it too is if you identify, so let's say they've got a prototype mode, they've got a few customers, but they're kind of stuck there in project mode. I mean, of course, we have our own services. We could help introduce them to our channel of, 50,000 channel partners. And our channel partners are broken down mostly IT channel, but we also have commercial AV, the physical security integrators. So that came from the security space, and then we also can reach out to the residential IT market as well.
Great.
So it's a good way, and then get that particular solution stack in front of somebody, and then the ideal person is has a project and maybe even worked with even one partner, even one partner who's been able to take their solution in there. And I understand that too, and as you know too, you've got in any solution stack, there's usually, I call the sexy front end, right? That's the thing. Ooh, I want that thing. But there's a bunch of other things like a sensor that sticks on the bottom of a river, right? I mean, it's like, that ain't that sexy. But by combining and bundling, the one good thing about, our audience is, and what we teach both on how to put together security bundles and IoT bundles is it's the bundle, right? It allows you to create a unique offer, not lead with a product, because you can lead with a product, but leading with an offer that includes all the right components, the right service thing and whatever. And we have to teach people, a lot of integrators, the difference between a product and an offer. I can say to you, hey, I'll sell you this phone right here, for $10,000. And you'd say, no, like, I don't care what it is. I'd pay you $500, right? But I said, yeah, I have the personal cell phone of, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and, 5 other world leaders. And if you call them, I guarantee you they'll answer any question you have about investing. Would you give me 10 for this? Right? I mean, I've now taken this ordinary commodity thing, combined it with something else, and now I have an offer, right? And that sounds to me like you actually teach your people too in that accelerator, like, hey, if you combine it with this, add this software or whatever, now you have an offer that's very intriguing rather than say, hey, I got a sensor, I've got a problem looking for a solution.
Yeah. We're firm believers in helping people understand you never sell products, you sell solutions. Mm-hmm. So you need to identify what is that problem. Maybe that problem is you would love the advice of Bill Gates. If you can deliver that advice, somebody will pay for that. They're not going to pay for the hardware, they're paying for the advice. Right.
Yeah.
Understanding that is critical.
Yeah, that's good. So any last things, you mentioned ways to get a hold of you, and I'll put all those in the show notes and send all those out. Any other stories or any other things that kind of where you're going? You mentioned expansion, like that. If somebody were to come to you and say, ooh, I would love if IoT were set up in Denver, for example, what are the ideal characteristics that you're looking for to expand in a particular area?
Yeah, we'd love to speak with anyone. The things that we get excited about is working with folks that have a bias towards action. We like working with organizations that are trying to get something done. That recognize that while we're a 501c3, we're really here to get stuff done. We're not a charitable organization. we like working with creative folks. We want to recognize that we're not going to do it all ourselves. So, I'm really glad to be on this program because Channel Pro is providing a great service to the market already, and where we meet people that we can support with our specific resources, we do that, but we need other partners to introduce them to as well. And so we're looking for folks that collaborate well across organizations. But one area that I haven't mentioned as much, but we're working a tremendous amount in smart cities as well. So we are helping municipal governments, state governments. We're actually working with a couple of the federal agencies as well on 5G, on new standards, but that also on their economic development efforts. So we've worked with two communities, in particular, smaller communities that for years had been in population decline, that now through leverage of entrepreneurship and technology tools and platforms now see their populations are growing. And I don't want to take full credit for that. Obviously, those communities did a lot more than just work with Riot, but we're looking for whether it's a large city, a smaller community. If you want to engage in this next wave of the economy, and believe me, real-time data is going to replace everything that we used to call IT business intelligence. Like that is what drives all business forward. So corporation, government, university, whoever you are, we'd love to work with you. When several of those different kind of blood types are in a region and collaborative together, those are the places that we want to put new Riot Labs.
So if a mayor, well, actually a friend of mine is the mayor of Chandler, and I know that he's really focused a lot on furthering the smart city initiatives that he has. So how would he take advantage of Riot for that?
Reach out. We'll set up a meeting and have some discussions, try and understand where he's trying to go. We have a number of cities that we meet with monthly and understand kind of what are the problems they're trying to solve for their citizens. And then we go out into the entrepreneurial community and into the established business community, and we help source solutions and find who are the companies that are maybe doing something that is interesting. This coming Friday, I believe it is, we're meeting with the city and introducing them to a company that has helped map sidewalks across communities to understand for wheelchair accessible people. There's no Google Maps for wheelchair. How do you get from point A to point B?
Right.
You can do walking directions on Google, but that equivalent of where's a good ramp that I can get from here to there. They're creating a solution like that. The city has a need, and we just create those connections. So we're happy to work with any city that has problems and they're looking for people to help solve them. It creates great opportunities for small businesses to get a customer and for government to provide for their citizens. So we look for those kind of win-wins.
Right. Well, Tom, this has been amazing, and I appreciate your time on this deal. And again, I'll put all the ways that people can connect with you, in the show notes. And I really appreciate the time and really what you're doing to move the entire IoT movement forward.
Great. Appreciate it, Mark. Thanks for having me on, and I'll let you know next time I'm out in your area. I'd love to get together.
All right. Sounds good.
Great. Take care.